Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, the bear market mindset. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and remember to check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. Now, we make videos on this very topic fairly frequently over the last few months. I try to do one more or less every single month. Sometimes we call it tips for navigating the bear market. Sometimes we call it the bear market blues. Sometimes we call it the bear market resistance band, right? But in general, I just want to provide yet another update talking about where we are and what we could expect. Okay, so one of the things to remember is that Bitcoin is in fact in a bear market. One of the things we discussed before is that a lot of people will likely wait for a lower low to call it a bear market. So I have seen a few more people that were initially resistant on calling it a bear market. Now they are admitting it's a bear market now that we've put in a lower low. And there still will likely be people that will sort of not budge on calling it a bear market until we actually capitulate further down. And by that point, the bear market could in fact be over. But I want to talk about the bear market mindset and how it's hard to pivot to it if you still haven't. But once you do, it makes navigating this phase so much easier. Okay. So one of the videos we made on tips for navigating the bear market, this was back in February, right? And what we said back then, this was when Bitcoin was 37, 38K. We said, number one, cash is king, right? We also said alts are risky. Now back over here, you can see the Bitcoin dominance was at 42%. Okay, it was at 42%. Now the Bitcoin dominance is around 45%. So it's up from 42% to 45% over the last 3 months. And that's why we said alts are risky. It doesn't mean that Bitcoin's not risky itself, but it just means that most altcoins, not only will they go down against their USD pairs, but they'll go down against their Bitcoin pairs. That's key. And that's the key thing to remember. Yes, we understand that Bitcoin could go down, but by holding a lot of altcoins, you're holding coins that are likely just going to go down against Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's already going down itself. So if it's going down against Bitcoin, that means it's going down quicker than Bitcoin. Okay, so if you look at a lot of Bitcoin pairs, if you look at like say Ether Bitcoin, right? Look at Ether Bitcoin, you can see it's been going down. I mean, I guess it was over here back in February, and then it came down and then back up and then come back down. I would argue this kind of looks like some Wyckoff distribution pattern, just like Bitcoin in early 2021. So I would be somewhat worried about that. But cash is king, right? Bitcoin was at 38K back then. Now it's at 29K. Alts are risky. Bitcoin dominance was at 42% back then. Now it's 45%, right? So you can see these tactics or these like this mindset to be an is in fact playing out. Number three, supports are memes. Right? Supports are memes. Why did we say that? Because people were sort of hoping that this higher low would ultimately hold, right? But I said back then, listen, guys, in bear markets, support lines, they just simply become memes. No one cares about them. They eventually break. And it's not until they break that people will start to recognize that the market conditions are in fact changing. What you'll remember, as we said back then, is in 2018, once Bitcoin put in a lower low here in June of 2018, that is when the Bitcoin dominance started to go up, right? So you can see June 2018 right here, that's when the dominance really started to take off. It was once Bitcoin put in its first lower low. So that's why back in February, we said supports are memes. Okay, so once we put in the lower low, Bitcoin dominance should go up. If Bitcoin dominance is going to go up, we know that altcoins are extremely risky. And we also expect Bitcoin to fall itself because we're in a bear market. So then cash is king. So cash is king. If you're going to be in crypto, Bitcoin is mainly where you want to be because we expect the dominance to go up. Therefore, all Bitcoin pairs are going to bleed. Support lines are memes. So you would expect support lines to eventually be taken out and resistance levels to ultimately hold. And we've seen that, right? We saw even back in February, back in February, we were over here, we actually went up. We got rejected by the 200-day, which is the main resistance level in a bear market, right? It's the main resistance level in a bear market. And we saw that in 2018 as well. We got rejected from it multiple times before we actually mustered up the courage to go back above it. If you go look at the weekly time frame and you look at, say, the bull market support band, you can also see we've been getting rejected by that fairly continuously. since November. Every attempt to break it is ultimately pushed down. And the one time we did break it, we were unable to see any follow through, and we just sort of sliced through it like butter on the way back down. So again, cash is king, alts are risky, supports are memes. It's playing out, right? I mean, it is playing out. And then hedge, right? You hedge with other assets. Like, you could hedge with things like commodities, or maybe you want to hedge with things that maybe are risk on assets but aren't quite as volatile as crypto, especially altcoins. I mean, there's index funds, which are still going down themselves, but they haven't been going down as much as a lot of altcoins have been. But you look in this picture here. I mean, Link was at $14, Ethereum was at 2,600, ADA was at 92 cents, DOT was at $16, Matic was at 150 almost. You can see that a lot of these altcoins are down significantly. Some are down 40, 50%. Bitcoin's not down 50% from 37, 38K, right? But a lot of altcoins are. And then be patient, okay? We're 3 months later now. I mean, this is exactly 3 months ago when we made this video on tips for navigating the bear market. Exactly 3 months ago. It's now May 21st. And you can see that all of the tips that we are trying that I tried to provide back then, they've been working out relatively well so far. Now, here's the thing. If you didn't believe me back then that, we are in fact in a bear market, I do think it's worth considering now, even if you've been sort of holding against it. And it's worth considering because if all you ever do is just throw all of your money into altcoins during a Bitcoin bear market, it's a great way for you to lose your money, right? It's a great way for you to lose your money because altcoins are sort of like a black hole. When we're in a Bitcoin bear market, you throw your money in and then like a couple months later, it's 50% down. You throw more money in, a couple months later, it's another 50% down. Then eventually you give up and then Bitcoin recovers and then you maybe go into Bitcoin and then eventually altcoins recover. But by that point, you've been burned on altcoins so many times, you want nothing to do with altcoins. So the trick is when the market is bearish, you want to be pretty far away from altcoins. So I want to talk about a couple of things here. Number one, a lot of people say, well, Ben, you said bear markets make you rich. And bull markets make you money, bear markets make you rich. It's true. Bear markets make you rich because they lead you to the accumulation phase that follows bear markets, right? It leads you to the accumulation phase that follows the bear market, okay? How are you going to get rich if you DCA an altcoin for the entirety of a Bitcoin bear market? Because most altcoins will never go to new all-time highs. A lot of them will. I'm not saying a lot of them won't. I mean, there are several of the ones in the top 10 I would assume probably would eventually. But a lot of altcoins, especially as you get further down, they'll never see new all-time highs. So by buying them consistently throughout a Bitcoin bear market, there's just a good chance you're never going to see your money again, right? It's just going to slowly disappear, like throwing your money into a black hole. Okay, so when we talk about altcoins are risky and bear markets make you rich, they make you rich because they lead you to the accumulation phase, right? They lead you to the accumulation phase from which you can at that point start to accumulate the altcoins that you want to accumulate and gear up for the next bull run. The reason it's important to recognize that we're in a bear market is because it will allow you to say, you know what? Every single time that altcoins pump, I'm not going to FOMO in, right? I'm going to assume that the rally will be sold off until Bitcoin gets to a more convincing bottom, okay? And now you might think that 25K is the bottom, and I will agree that you could be right, but there are a lot of charts that would suggest we could go lower than $25,000. I mean, even if you look at things like the regression bands, normally we do eventually go back to the 200-week moving average. You can see that we revisited around the fair value logarithmic regression band fit to quote-unquote non-bubble data. It seems like we're headed that direction. That's just something to consider. And furthermore, if we agree that Bitcoin's in a bear market and we know alts are going to lose more than Bitcoin, or we think alts are going to lose more than Bitcoin, then we would expect the Bitcoin dominance to go up. So the way to play the bear market is to, as I've said before, is just be heavy Bitcoin and to try to have a cash position in preparation for an accumulation phase, right? In preparation for an accumulation phase. So, I put all this together because, and to show you this video from 3 months ago, because there were a lot of people back then that didn't like it, and they said, this is the time to be loading up on altcoins. But all I can see is that most of those altcoins are 40, 50% down since then, and cash does remain king, and that support the support level was in fact a meme, right? So everything we said in that video has been relatively accurate. And I don't say that from a place of thinking that I get everything correct. I know that I don't. Okay, so I want to be clear. I do not claim to know exactly what the market's going to do. I've been wrong plenty of times. Obviously, there's been several things I've been wrong about over the years. Clearly, the cycle did not lengthen from the market cycle bottom, but I was very open and honest about that. And remember, when the Fed pivots, you have to pivot. Okay, so the Fed pivoted, and if we go from a phase of quantitative easing to quantitative tightening, we have to recognize that, hey, like the bull market's unlikely going to continue in the short term, and we also have to recognize that resistance levels are likely going to hold. So I don't put out these types of videos to say necessarily, look, like, this has been spot on, dead accurate, because I know I don't always get everything right, and I'm not trying to pretend like I do. I know that I don't. I am trying to say that in general, momentum is a hell of a thing, right? It's a hell of a thing. And when we're trending higher, we are more likely to trend higher. But when we're trending lower, we're more likely to keep trending lower. Eventually, we'll reach the accumulation phase and the strategy will change. But like I said 3 months ago, cash is king, alts are risky, supports are memes, hedge, and be patient. All 5 of those things I still think apply today, okay? Now, what that means is over the next several months, you're likely going to see occasional pumps, okay? In fact, I would not be surprised at all to see Bitcoin go back to 35K, maybe even 40K, right? Maybe even 40K. You remember that in prior bear markets for Bitcoin, we do occasionally get pumps to the 200-day moving average. Okay, even in 2018, we had pumps. And in fact, after Bitcoin put in a lower low, we eventually had a pump back up to the 200-day SMA. By the way, the pump that Bitcoin had back up to the 200-day was about a 41% move. To give you an idea of what that would look like today, from the bottom, a 41% move would put Bitcoin back at $36,000. Now, the 200-day SMA right now is coming in just over $44,000. So when I look at this market, I would say there is a decent probability that at some point we will get a pump back to the 200-day moving average. Now, a lot of people might use that as an opportunity to say, hey, look, we're still in a bull market. But remember, every single pump for the last 6 months has been sold off, right? Sold off, sold off, sold off. This one was sold off as well. This one was sold off too. And then we've just come down. So yes, will we eventually see another pump to a higher price? Probably, right? That doesn't mean we're not in a bear market, right? It doesn't mean we're not in a bear market. And you would do yourself a favor, I think, if you just considered this, right? If you considered that, look, just because you get a pump doesn't mean you're not in a bear market. Anyone would look at 2018 and call this a bear market, but it doesn't mean that there were not occasionally 40, 50% pumps in the middle of the bear market, sometimes even 80, 90% or something. And then those pumps sort of got less and less as time went on, and then eventually the floor fell out and we saw our final capitulation. Now, I will warn you not to be deterministic about anything, except for the fact that I think Bitcoin trends higher with time. Okay, I do think Bitcoin trends higher with time, but until we see better macroeconomic conditions, until we see markets starting to sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel of this rate hiking schedule and the Fed being relatively hawkish, until we see equities actually starting to do relatively well and sustain it, and until we see Bitcoin really start to go sideways for a while, you should not assume that any pump is necessarily the bottom. Now, there are a lot of indicators we can look at to try to identify the bottom, right? Look at them. I mean, there's a lot of them, okay? One of them is, again, our bull market support band. One of the things you'll notice if we get rid of the price noise and just look at the bull market support band, you'll notice that it does not go sustainably higher until it gets back into the regression band. Look, it went down until we got back into the regression band. Here it did the same thing, right? It just goes down, back into the regression, down, back into the regression. We're currently going down, back into the regression. Yes, we had the pump going here. We said we would, right? We said 3 to 6 months we should be seeing a new all-time high. It did not carry on as long as I thought. But again, the Fed pivoted, so I have to pivot too. So I think it's fairly safe to say that we are in fact in a bear market. Resistance levels will continue to hold. And that, there's a lot of indicators to show that once the bull market support band reaches the regression band, usually the cycle bottom is already in, right? I mean, look at this. Every time that the bull market support band has hit the upper logarithmic regression, the cycle bottom was already in. Here it occurred as well. Cycle bottom was already in. In 2019, once we hit it, the cycle bottom was already in. But we're not actually hitting it yet, right? Like the bull market support band has not made it to the regression band yet. And you could argue that by the time it makes it there, the cycle bottom might already be in, but we're still a ways off from that. And if Bitcoin pumps back up to 35K or something before then it could even be further off than that. Another thing to look at as well are that things like the 20-week and the 100-week moving average, the cross of these moving averages has historically marked the bottom right here and right here. They haven't crossed yet. I don't know how I feel about it necessarily marking the bottom, but that's something to consider. If you look at things like the corridor, what you'll notice, at least last time, was that the corridor on Bitcoin that we use, it hit the 200-week moving average once the corridor crossed the 200-week moving average. That hasn't happened yet, right? It hasn't happened yet. So we look at all of this data, and not only do we look at it from a technical perspective, right? We also, by the way, one more thing is normally every time you go below the 50, you eventually go to the 100-week SMA, and every time you go below the 100, you eventually go to the 2. So 50, 102, 50, 102, 50, 102, 50, 100, 200. It seems like it's only a matter of time. The 200-week SMA is currently at just around $22,000. So I do think there's a high likelihood we will eventually make it there. So the reason we say all this is not just to be, it's not just to, put a damper on your day. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. What I'm trying to do is help you figure out what an appropriate strategy would be during a phase like this. If you were the person that would have said in February that, if you would have trolled me on cash is king, alts are risky, supports are memes, hedge, and be patient, look where we are now, right? So we'll see when we are in another 3 months, but my guess is this advice will continue to hold. And I do anticipate the dominance of Bitcoin going much higher than it currently is. And so if that's the case and you agree that the dominance is going to go higher, then it would make sense to not want to buy every single altcoin dip. I'm not saying you shouldn't hold any altcoins. I mean, I know a lot of people might have them locked up for staking. You might be earning interest on them various places. Look, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. What I am trying to tell you is I've learned the lesson the hard way in prior bear markets, where in 2014, I loaded up on altcoins the entire way down. And by the time we actually hit the bottom, I didn't have any money left to put in the market. Okay. In 2018, I waited and I started to put money in over here. And even in altcoins, and then when Bitcoin dropped 50%, I saw those altcoins drop another like 80%. Okay. So with that in mind, I just want people to learn from my mistakes so that you do not have to repeat them. Okay, so that you don't have to live through what I previously lived through. I'm not saying it because I'm against your altcoin. I'm not saying anything like that. I think crypto is going to be huge. I think it's going to absolutely be huge. But we're in a bear market right now. We need to get through the bear market first, and then we can talk about preparing for the next bull market. But we're not completely through the bear market yet. I think we need a bit more time. And I think if you follow these strategies, it will help you. These are things that I wish people had told me back in prior market cycles. And so far, 3 months later, I do think these pieces of advice are holding. And I do think they will continue to hold even if we get short-term pumps coming in the next few weeks. Okay. So if you guys like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. We also have Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. You'll get access to weekly reports, 3 premium videos each week, trading view indicators. We have a website with on-chain data, social statistics, derivative data, on-chain logarithmic regression, return on investment, all sorts of stuff. Make sure you sign up. You can lock in the lower rate as long as you do not cancel. And if you don't like it, you can always cancel, right? It's just like a monthly thing. But anyways, make sure you check it out, intothecryptoverse.com. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Give the video a thumbs up. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.